Hamilton poised to take over at the top of the table, that the championship lead changes hands. We've got 66 laps to come around this 2.9 mile circuit, full of great corners to test the aerodynamic demands of these Formula One cars. Overtaking is difficult but not impossible, and aided by two DRS zones, drag reduction system zones, into the hairpin at turn 10 and along the main straight as well, where in a few moments time the cars will make the 730 metre run from pole down to that first turn, and who knows who could be leading at the start of this race, because for all Mercedes dominance in this weekend so far, you would be a fool, Martin Brundle, to think that you've got it sussed and you've got everything covered before the stampede into that first corner.
Absolutely, too many variables in this. Just getting it off the grid for starters, the long run down there, you pointed out, Crofty. Any contact down there, back markers, safety car just at the wrong point with your strategy, reliability of course, driver error less so, but it can happen. And so, as they always say, it's never won until you see that funny little piece of cloth with black and white squares on it.
We'll get onto strategy in a few moments time, but at the start, who to watch for? Could Valtteri Bottas replicate what his teammate Felipe Massa has been up to in the last three races? Massa has gained 8 places at the start and hasn't lost a single place. Now it's Bottas's turn to lead the Williams charge, because here's the grid. Lewis Hamilton then on pole, a 5th consecutive front row for him as well, alongside Nico Rosberg. Then it's Daniel Ricciardo in the top 3 once again for Red Bull, and Bottas alongside him. Romain Grosjean, 50th Grand Prix start for him, best ever qualifying of the season so far. Fernando Alonso out qualified by his teammate here in Spain for the first time in 10 years. Jenson Button starts in the top 10. Felipe Massa, what can he do from 9th on the grid? He has Nico Hülkenberg for company. Sergio Perez just behind them alongside Danny Kvyat in the Toro Rosso. He was fastest in the speed traps in qualifying. Kevin Magnussen didn't set a time in Q2, lines up behind Esteban Gutierrez, and there Sebastian Vettel, the defending champion, a 5-place grid penalty for changing his gearbox, starts 15th. Max Chilton leads the Marussia Caterham fight for the first time in 2014. Marcus Ericsson out-qualifies his teammate Kamui Kobayashi for the first time in 2014. And Jean-Eric Verne, a 10-place grid penalty for him after his wheel fell off in practice. And Pastor Maldonado, once again for Lotus, not setting a time in qualifying. That's 3 times in 5 races now.
Yes, but luckily for him, he did a representative lap time through practice that suggested he is eligible to start the race, despite not obviously meeting the 107% time rule. See lots of tweets on that actually.
Seats on fire, it's so warm.
So Lewis Hamilton then in that Mercedes, 2-stop or a 3-stop? The teams are a bit split as to what's the best way to go here. A 3-stop obviously protects excessive tyre wear, but you're going to have to do some overtaking. And a 2-stop might actually be a couple of seconds quicker, but you've then got the tyre problems to go with it.
I think they'll have to wait to see how the race pans out, the front runners, as to where they might find a gap to take the security of a 3-stopper. Then of course they're at risk against one of their main competitors, main rivals, going the other way and finding a better way. If you do a 3-stopper, you've probably got to overtake somebody to win the race or get on the podium. But if you've got fresher tyres, that should be possible in this race. Not the easiest place to overtake, as we know well.
So if you were Mercedes, would you split strategy today? If there is a bit of indecision?
I've always thought with a split strategy means you don't know what you want to do, basically. And if there's a clear route, then put both cars on what appears to be the best way of doing it, and then see what happens. If you don't, then they're pushing that car back so that he can spin his wheels up, and that'll help him make a better start when it really matters next time around. Just lay a little bit of rubber down in his pit box there. So Verne's starting on hard tyres at the back. But if Mercedes do split the strategy, which driver are you going to put on a 2 and which are you going to put on a 3? Because that always creates a lot of suspicion between the drivers, inevitably.
So Lewis Hamilton complaining that he's a little bit warm in his cockpit, leads the drivers away on the formation lap, which they've all been spoken to about the formation lap, and not backing up too much, not creating long gaps so people sit on the grid for lengthy periods.
I'm a bit concerned about that comment from Lewis about being so hot in there. Obviously they share the cockpit very closely with a lot of electrical parts, and the battery's not too far. The battery pack that weighs about 40 kilos is not too far away from them either. So these cars do run over 50 degrees centigrade inside as a matter of course. It's a furnace in there, as easy as it all looks sometimes from the onboard camera, but it does suggest that he's receiving a bit more than normal heat from there, but it's plenty warm enough out there, isn't it? Track temp 37, air temp only 23, but the sun's pretty strong.
It's about 7 or 8 degrees less than it was yesterday, and as Jenson Button said to you on the grid, that might just help McLaren a little bit with their narrow working range that they seem to be able to switch the tyres on in. Well, we see a renewed performance from McLaren. They need it. They were losing out in the first sector yesterday by about 3% to the Mercedes, and they were only about 1% in terms of their times above the Marussias at that stage. Such were the difficulties Button and Magnussen were having. In the Constructors' Championship, you can see there, Mercedes a long way clear. Good job for the rest, and it's double points in the final race of the season, but it might be a little bit irrelevant by the time we get to Abu Dhabi.
It could be long over by them, but what it might do is keep the championship alive between the two Mercedes drivers and open to luck, really. As Mr. Eccleston said, it's probably unfair, but that's what he decided to do, and they followed suit because I think they were busy voting on something more important to them that day, probably involving money.
Yeah. So if you're Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg today, particularly if you're Nico Rosberg, can you survive another day where you've got all the potential but you just fall a little bit short? Does he have to halt the momentum of Hamilton this afternoon?
Yes, he does, because I think if Lewis seizes the World Championship lead for the first time and continues to be dominant, then psychologically he's got a massive advantage heading towards Monaco.
So, on a track where 91% of the races have been won by the front row, we have Mercedes with their front row lockout, their second of 2014, their second in a row here in Barcelona, and 100% for poles during the course of this season. Williams, fast starters right behind them. Daniel Ricciardo sandwiched a little bit in the middle. Romain Grosjean in the Lotus, an immense qualifying performance from him yesterday to get 5th on the grid. Can he defend himself from the fast starting Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen behind him?
The left-hand side of the grid will definitely be a little bit cleaner and a little bit better, a few metres advantage, because that's the racing line. But it's not as if it's a disaster to start on the right-hand side either, and it's a better run down into the first corner sometimes, and you can let it breathe a bit as well with the exit of the pit lane if you get 3 or 4 abreast. Well,
looks to me like they've all heeded the warning about these slow formation laps, and they've not been sat on the grid for too long. We've got lights on already. We're almost underway here in Spain. It's lights out and away we go, and look behind Romain Grosjean, behind Daniel Ricciardo, gets a good getaway. Bottas covers them both. Hamilton zooms off into the lead. Rosberg's now got Bottas for company. There's a Ferrari of Fernando Alonso coming down on the inside. Massive lock up there from Romain Grosjean. Kimi Raikkonen squeezes past Fernando Alonso, and Felipe Massa's made up a couple of places as well as Hamilton leads them up the hill ahead of Nico Rosberg and Daniel Ricciardo.
Yes, looking at overhead, clearly the best starter was Bottas. Hamilton got away well, a little bit tardy for Rosberg, but he got away with it, and the Ferraris will be, Alonso knows he's got to pass Raikkonen on this first lap somewhere, somehow.
And Raikkonen was trying to get past Romain Grosjean, his former teammate, but he did well, Grosjean, to cover him off. There's Felipe Massa just ahead of a decent starting Nico Hülkenberg, riding on board now with Sebastian Vettel, and Sebastian Vettel down in 16th, and look at that, Adrian Sutil passing him on the run down towards turn 8 as we see the leaders now coming through. There's the 2 Ferraris trying to squabble. Alonso trying to get past Raikkonen, but you just can't do it there into turn 9. Now he might have a run down towards the hairpin at turn 10 under braking. Is he too far back? Yes, he is. There's lockups all around. Raikkonen, big puff of smoke from his front left tyre.
Yeah, the Ferrari boys know they need to be ahead, and if I saw what I thought I saw, it was Alonso taking a half chance into turn 9 that was never going to work, and then threw away that chance down into turn 10 by being too far behind.
And there's Kevin Magnussen as well, and Jenson Button dueling. Button now down into 13th place. Magnussen goes wide. That might just help Button out a little bit. Sebastian Vettel takes the chicane, and Magnussen, who's had a few first lap incidents in his short career so far, almost loses a bit of front wing again.
Yeah, scruffy first lap there for Kevin. Down into 15th place now, so it's up to 14th for Vettel.
And look, down the straight we watch as the Marussia of Jules Bianchi and the Sauber of Adrian Sudal side by side. Sudal locks up and just a little bit too deep for Jules Bianchi, who was trying to make the move. Bianchi, though, getting a decent start. Max Chilton losing places at the start, running in 21st at the moment. Hamilton was 1.1 second clear at the end of the lap.
Yeah, Marussia really do fancy a bit of a run at the Saubers in the near future, don't they? They're in terms of performance.
And at the moment, Bianchi and Sudal having a pretty decent scrap at the moment, but Sebastian Vettel has got ahead of Kevin Magnussen and Adrian Sudal after losing out on the first lap.
How is the front wing? How is the front wing?
Looks okay, we'll keep checking.
Pretty close, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he might just got away with that by mounting that massive curb that Anthony was looking at in the first part of the show.
4-inch high curb. It's fairly impactful if you hit it in a Formula 1 car. Sebastian Vettel, and we're riding on board, down in 14th place at the moment, behind Jenson Button, a long way behind his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, who's pressurising here. Valtteri Bottas ahead of him, out in front. The two Mercedes extending their advantage. I mentioned it was 1.1 seconds for Lewis Hamilton over Nico Rosberg, and the gap now has gone to 1.6 seconds, with Hamilton half a second faster on the second lap. Then comes Bottas, Ricciardo, Grosjean, Raikkonen and Alonso, Massa, Hülkenberg and Perez. That's the top 10. Gutierrez, Kvyat and Jenson Button now in 13th. Then Vettel, Magnussen, Sudal and Verne and Bianchi, Kobayashi, Maldonado, Chilton and Ericsson, and nobody has retired on the opening couple of laps. They've all got through safely.
The Ferraris are all over the show. They look like they've got no grip at all at this stage of the Grand Prix, and Massa's shaping up behind Alonso now as well in the race. But a replay at the start, both Williams getting off the line supremely well, and Massa there splitting the Ferraris at this time. Grosjean locks his both front tyres horribly, which must be giving a few dramas out there as we're watching this replay, but at least he's holding position. Then we had an almighty fight between the two Ferrari boys who knew they had to somehow get the high ground, and it was Raikkonen who won that battle, currently P6.
And you could just see in the bottom of your screen through the second turn how Max Chilton had to run wide through there, and that's how he lost a few places at the start.
And Ricciardo there went on to the rev limiter too hard, and that cost him. He got away quite well, very low revs for the getaway, no wheel spin, and then gets around the outside of Grosjean to recover at least one of those places. But just getting into the rev limiter that little bit off the, once he got up and running, cost him 2 places.
Kevin Magnussen started 14th. We can see a replay from his view.
Great start, but he's now on the grass, so there ain't an awful lot of grip on the green bits.
Yeah, Kvyat was slow away and then managed to get going in the secondary phase. There's all the smoke coming from Grosjean. The two Force Indias getting a bit squeezed as well, as we now see the view from the thermal image of Kimi Raikkonen's Ferrari.
Well, the exhaust and turbo heat underneath there.
Yeah, you're going to feel the warmth there if you're following quite closely. He did what he had to do, Kimi Raikkonen, kept his teammate Fernando Alonso behind him. As we watch the two McLarens of Button and Magnussen.
So that's what happened then to Kevin Magnussen. He was trying to go round the outside into T13 of his teammate and got wrong-footed completely and went off.
And he did get a tap on that front wing from Sebastian Vettel. And talking of taps, there's Pastor Maldonado and Marcus Ericsson, and that looks very scruffy indeed.
1.8 metres wide, and they stay the same width all the way around the track, and that wasn't a 1.8 metre gap.
So we're on the 4th lap of this Spanish Grand Prix. 66 laps so far, going very nicely for Lewis Hamilton, who's out of DRS range and out of immediate threat down the straights from his teammate Nico Rosberg. So the first part of the race going very well indeed for the British driver. Rosberg's got to hang on in there and now think about strategy, think about saving his tyres and extending the life a little bit and making whatever strategy they're planning down at Mercedes work for him today. Valtteri Bottas still holding off Daniel Ricciardo, the Red Bull, faster through the corners than the Williams, but it just hasn't got that grunt down the straight, even though, as you can see, the gap in the rear wing, Ricciardo has got DRS to try and help him, and they're approaching 200 miles an hour at this stage of the race as they go into that first turn. Grosjean holding off Raikkonen as well, even though Raikkonen's got DRS assistance in that Ferrari, and doing a fine job, it has to be said, in that Lotus in these very early stages.
Mercedes-Benz a 1.5 seconds a lap quicker than their pursuers. We're back now to the 80s Williams style, to the late 90s early 90s, late 90s McLaren style, the Schumacher era at Ferrari, over a second a lap clear of the field. That's how much advantage they've got. We've got very much a two-part race. We've got a two-part season, but thank goodness Rosberg is going to keep Hamilton honest all the way through that.
It's funny you say that. The first team Mercedes to lead every single lap of the opening 4 races since Williams in 1990. Ted in the pits.
So what kind of different strategies could Hamilton run and Rosberg run, David? That's what I'm thinking about down here. They clearly have the pace advantage, and perhaps the Williams is holding up perhaps the threat, but we'll see what Ricciardo can do. However, I think what we're looking at is perhaps like China, when you run the unfavoured hard tyre. And it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Rosberg, if you want to do something different, we're expecting everyone to start on the medium, as they have indeed, and then change to the medium in the first stop, and then go to the hard tyre at the second stop. But Rosberg could do the contra. He could put the hard tyre on in the middle stint and just do a small stint on that, and then run the medium tyre to the end of the race. So that's the variation that we're looking at. So we'll know when they start to come in around lap 20.
And keep an eye out for the rear tyres when they do, because I can't help but think that Rosberg's rear tyres look fractionally better than Hamilton's in these early stages. We'll see how that one unravels. But it's a good point though, Ted. How will they handle when they get on the other compounds too? And indeed, of course, fresh tyres.
But the immediate, let's watch Ricciardo.
Daniel, if you cannot overtake, drop back to 2 seconds gap, please. Drop to 2 seconds gap, look after the tyres.
Because he's had a go, and he's had a go, and it's not been enough for Ricciardo, and now they've got to start thinking about the duration of this race rather than clearing that Williams, which is being a little bit too stubborn as far as Daniel Ricciardo is concerned.
Yeah, let's get on with it or get back, isn't it? Because I would imagine also his car is running very hot indeed. He's got all the heat coming off the back of the Williams, all the heat rejected out of that. I mean, the thermal efficiency of these engines is about 40% now, was 30% with the old V8. So that means there's still 60%, and 40-odd% is very high, by the way. Still 60-odd% of the heat's being rejected out of the car, one way and another, and Ricciardo's driving into that with all of his own heat issues going on as well. So it'll be tyres, and you might also, it pays often to just move over as well a car's width and gets a fresher, cooler air, and he's having a go.
He might just try and do the overtake right now then, but he just didn't have enough meters down the straight, even with this long straight, to get that overtake done. He was tantalisingly close then, was Daniel Ricciardo, and Bottas going out a little bit wide there. That's going to still give him encouragement as they head through turn 3, but it's tantalisingly there for him, third place, isn't it?
So being a racing driver, Ricciardo's response to that is, I will then have a massive go at passing him, and I'll just wait and see if they tell me again to drop back 2 seconds. Right now, I think I'll just politely ignore that and see if I can get past him, and fair enough.
And out in front, the two Mercedes continue to stretch their advantage. The gap between Rosberg and Bottas, second and third, was round about 6 seconds at the end of lap 6.
And look at Grosjean hanging on very well, 1.2 ahead of the Ferraris, and just 1.6 behind Ricciardo in the Red Bull. So what a great race this is at the moment for Lotus.
His 50th Grand Prix start, Romain Grosjean, and a guy who's due a change of luck, it has to be said, after some excellent performances last season and not really getting the chance this season. Now, is Ricciardo that much closer now to Valtteri Bottas coming into the final turn and down the straight where he can use the DRS to have a go and try and make the move stick? Let's watch this now. Hamilton and Rosberg are long past the start-finish line, and they're away through the first corner as we watch the Red Bull gaining, but not gaining enough. And even under a bit of late braking, he's still a couple of car lengths behind.
Absolutely, but he was too far. He got a little bit squirrely coming out of the T15, the Mickey Mouse chicane, and was never that close. And I think he had to fight it even through turn 16, which is normally full throttle. He was fighting the car a little bit and just dropped back. So he'll have to regroup. It might pay him just to drop back a little bit, cool those tyres and cool the motor, and come again.
In the qualifying speed traps, Valtteri Bottas was about 3.5 miles an hour faster than Daniel Ricciardo. Doesn't sound an awful lot, but it's making enough of a difference for him at the moment. Now, is Rosberg doing what Ricciardo should do at the moment? Is he starting to drop back a bit?
Look at the middle sector, look. 34.771 for Hamilton. Rosberg, 34.771, to within a thousandth of a second.
I'll call it for a couple laps.
Whatever data Nico Rosberg was studying last night, he's done his homework well. Danny Kvyat at the moment, 12th place, but not for long. Esteban Gutierrez on his right-hand side. Now, with the loss of downforce we've had in 2014, that's a brave move he just made there, Kvyat, and it's got himself up into 11th place.
See, they learn all these tricks in GP3 and GP2, and it's nice to see them replicated in F1.
It certainly is. Doing an Alonso there through the third turn. That wonderful overtaking move from the opening lap last year. And
still he had to very much jockey his own car, didn't he, around the outside. We should take more grip off these cars yet, which will make me about as popular as a toothache with the drivers, but more grip off, please.
I'll nod my head and agree, and I won't say a word when we get down to the paddock later. What would you say, though, to Sebastian Vettel at the moment, the world champion, down in 14th? He's got a Sauber ahead of him. He's got Kevin Magnussen behind him, because Magnussen tried to overtake his teammate and rather messed up and therefore handed Vettel a place here. And, well, if the Sauber keeps locking up, then Vettel's got some hope. And if he doesn't, then what sort of hope has Sebastian Vettel got to try and improve his position here?
Yeah, it's, well, in the last 4 years, we'd have said, well, he'll be leading by lap 40, wouldn't we?
Here he goes. He's going to have a go round the outside at turn 10. It's going to be very, very tight. Gutierrez has got the inside line. Has he got better traction, Vettel? Yes, he has. Very nice move indeed. Puts himself up into 13th place ahead of Esteban Gutierrez. But it was that lock-up earlier on, 2 corners beforehand, that gave Sebastian Vettel the opportunity, and Pastor Maldonado, who is picking up a few penalties and is picking up a few problems this season, now has a penalty for causing a collision with Marcus Ericsson, a 5-second stop-go penalty.
Well, we saw that one, didn't we? That was the too small a gap for too wide a car incident we talked about earlier on. But no wonder Jensen wouldn't smile on the grid for me, is it? He knew what was coming up, didn't he?
Well, this is Jensen Button passing the Sauber down into turn 1, and now we can see a replay of Sebastian Vettel getting past Esteban Gutierrez. Super car control, that.
I think Gutierrez is really struggling and realised there's no point in having an accident for the impossible fight. And Alonso then, as he knew he would, settled in to following a Ferrari in a Ferrari. That's why he was so punchy on the first lap, and all credit to him, Kimi Raikkonen was equally as punchy.
Both twice former winners, of course, of the Spanish Grand Prix, Kimi Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso, and at the moment Raikkonen has 6th place and Alonso has 7th. Jensen Button losing places at the start, settling into 12th place at the moment. Max Chilton still down in 21st after running wide at the start through the 2nd corner. It's Hamilton that leads, though, another fastest lap from him. The gap over 2 seconds in the front now, and we can head down to Ted at 1/6 race distance.
I've just been looking at the top speeds, and it is just that. Bottas's Williams, and it's between sort of 19 and 9 kph, the margin that Bottas has over Ricciardo in a straight line that's just doing for them. I'm just wondering, what about the Mercedes pace? These 131s they keep doing, apart from, you know, compared to Bottas's 33s, and then by extension Ricciardo's 33s. In clean air, what could Ricciardo do? And I'm just thinking about with that kind of pace there, perhaps the Mercedes are looking at 3 stops and absolutely punishing the tyres. I don't think they would be, just because I just think Bottas is holding Ricciardo up. I just think they're going at their pace, and Ricciardo perhaps isn't allowed to go at his pace. The safe thing to do if you're Mercedes, of course, is 2 stops, is it not?
It is, but it's a compound effect, isn't it? When your car's working beautifully, you take less life out of your tyres. It's a win-win.
Jensen, everything looks good for Plan A. Plan A is good.
Well, the plan A is 12, 2 stops or 3?
2 stop, I'd have thought.
We'll see in a minute. A 3-stopper, you would expect them in around about lap 15. 2-stopper, maybe a few laps later. But it depends, obviously, on what tyre they put on for the next stint, because they might just switch straight onto the hard tyre. And Jensen said this year the harder compound is actually a little bit better for the McLaren.
I always imagine when they have their factory debriefs on a Monday, they just all the other things they could do, just a little giggle. But anyway,
They do.
We'll guess our best.
Nico Rosberg has already collared me this season over a commentary as well. So you missed me at the start, did you? I got distracted by Magnussen and then
dribbling a 10th per sector out of his teammates.
And Jenson Button now has Sebastian Vettel for very close company. How long can he defend two former world champions? At the moment, Button trying to protect 12th place. Sebastian Vettel in 13th. Look, as he gets his foot down out of turn 8, that Red Bull is moving around. Would never have seen that in the last few years here.
No, I think it's true to say the compound's just not really working well here. They're struggling. I haven't seen cars slide around like this for a long time.
A bit too conservative?
I just think it hasn't. The compound, the construction, the cars, the tyre pressures they're having to use now just will not quite bite into this circuit this year.
So, a couple of car lengths there between Jenson Button and Sebastian Vettel, and Vettel has decided it's time for a pit stop. He's the first driver to come in for a pit stop in this Spanish Grand Prix. The start of lap 13. They obviously think Red Bull, they can slot him back into some free air and they can start to run their own race. And it's the hard compound tyre that goes on to the four-time champions Red Bull. And at 80 kilometres an hour, he makes his way down the pit lane. And when he comes out, he should be just behind Max Chilton, might be ahead of Marcus Ericsson. He can now come into the race, as you see there, the Caterham and the Marussia flashing past. There's a little lock-up from Valtteri Bottas as Daniel Ricciardo is starting to get a bit closer on this lap to him. Bottas nearly 15 seconds behind Nico Rosberg in second place, and rather holding up Daniel Ricciardo, is now starting to rejoin the battle once more.
Both Force Indias in the top 10 in the points at the moment. Hulkenberg and Perez 9th and 10th. And what's happening to Kvyat? He's kind of just slowly catching them for 11th.
As we watch now down towards turn 12, a stiffish breeze floating at the on the flags at the top of the hill as Bottas clunks the curb on the inside of the chicane. And now Daniel Ricciardo can see once again if he's just got enough top end speed to get past that Williams. It's a long way, and he's got a long DRS zone to try and help him. We're getting a bit of a tow as well, which will certainly help. So the into turn 1 to go.
There's no graining, so the option seems fine.
Which might help make up Mercedes' minds.
Yeah.
And he's just put in a 1:31.9 as Nico Rosberg, 4/10 faster than Lewis Hamilton on the previous lap.
And nearly 2/10 in the first sector of this lap, so he's just decided he was leaving a bit too much performance in those tyres, was Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, or deliberately part of the plan. Let Lewis get ahead a little bit, and then we'll start to eke him back and make a few gains later on. Ted, down to you.
So Rosberg's plan from his engineer Tony Ross was that they indeed copy Sebastian Vettel and run the prime tyre, the orange striped hard tyre in the next.
McLaren now ahead of Gutierrez and into 13th place.
So the plan is on Rosberg's side, or rather was, I should say, on Rosberg's side, to do the contra strategy to what Lewis Hamilton is doing. That didn't quite work out for him at the last race. But well, let's just see what he does, because then you heard Rosberg's response. Yes, but the options are fine. There's no graining, and they're running beautifully. Yeah,
0.4 of a second the difference on the last lap in Rosberg's favour, as Ricciardo comes in for his first pit stop of this race, which I'm sure will be a blessed relief for him now he's not got that Williams ahead.
He was attacking that speed line, wasn't he? Whoa, he's really attacking that speed line.
He was doing that in practice as well, and almost hit the wall in FP1. He's gone for the medium compound tyre, which, Martin, should enable him now to undercut Valtteri Bottas, you would expect in this round of pit stops.
Yeah, that's the plan. They'll put Williams under pressure. They've dropped him back into a bit of fresh air on the racetrack as well. So Williams, well, really, unless they're just going to ignore him and carry on with what they think is best, they'll have to respond.
So Sebastian Vettel, we're watching a replay now after his pit stop. He's managed to get past Max Chilton. That's Kamui Kobayashi in the Caterham, and two Renault-powered cars, but a little bit more money spent on the one in blue than the one in green. And Vettel using that performance advantage to get past Kobayashi and move ahead and up into 19th place. Ted.
You're absolutely right, Martin, because going into this race, Williams were one of the teams that thought, based on the wear life from Friday practice, that a two-stop was possible for them. I'm not saying they were going to do it, but now Red Bull are tempting them and poking them with the three-stop stick, aren't they? And saying, come on then, follow us if you dare. There's no reaction that I can see down the pit lane to the Williams pit box as yet. Well, there is one mechanic now coming into the pit box. I'll tell you if they do respond. But interesting what Sebastian Vettel is doing. He could do a long stint on this middle hard tyre stint and then still only do two stops at the end of it. Stop again on lap 45 and run to the end.
Yeah, he's gone past Ted, and they'd already missed the moment, frankly, because Ricciardo was 1.3 seconds quicker in the middle sector on his outlap. So he'd already made the gap and he'd already passed Bottas effectively if Bottas had come in. So they've got to stick with what they were doing. Massa's come in for Williams, but if Williams now don't stick with that programme, they've missed their chance.
Felipe Massa then, a fairly straightforward pit stop, comes out as Pastor Maldonado comes in his Lotus and will stop for 5 seconds before the guys can actually get to work on the car, because he's got that 5-second stop-go penalty for causing a collision with Marcus Ericsson. Felipe Massa back out onto the track in 16th place as we watch Raikkonen and Alonso, the two Ferraris, in 4th and 5th.
And Alonso will be chewing there behind his teammate. After 15 laps, they're half a minute off the lead.
I don't fancy that finish flag getting out of here intact if that's the way it's going to finish, as we now see Daniel Ricciardo and Jenson Button swapping places down the straight after Ricciardo's pit stop. As you can see, putting himself into 9th place now. Fairly straightforward overtake for him down at the end of that straight, but Button hasn't pitted as yet. Sebastian Vettel starting to make his way through the field. Daniel Ricciardo now trying to do the same to Danny Kvyat as he did to Jenson Button a few moments ago, and he's there waiting by the time the cars get onto the straight.
So Bottas has continued again, so they have resisted the poke from Red Bull, and they have got the confidence to stick as Alonso pits, but they have got the confidence to just carry on with what they think is best. But Alonso's going to undercut Raikkonen now, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's a question coming your way about that in a moment, Martin. Ricciardo on Kvyat. Kvyat might have been the fastest guy in the speed traps, but Ricciardo manages to get past him and puts himself into 7th place as Alonso now comes back out, and there you'll see the Lotus of Romain Grosjean, who has pitted, getting past Adrian Sutil, and Grosjean now into 12th place with Alonso trying to catch them. If Raikkonen is the leading Ferrari on the road, then why would Alonso get first call, I wonder, on strategy there, Martin?
Might be in his contract, you don't know. Let's see if they actually bring Raikkonen in. Maybe he'll be trying to two-stop. We know he can be quite dainty on the tyres from the last 2 seasons, but they're getting ready for him out in the pit lane.
Ted, down to you.
Oh, that'll go down well, Ted.
Exactly, that'll go down like a cold cup of concrete, won't it, with Kimi Raikkonen? It is the usual thing with teams that the lead car on the road has the first call on coming in so that they don't get done by their teammate, as Fernando Alonso's just done. I thought, like you, Martin, I thought Kimi Raikkonen might be nursing the tyres into a two-stop, but the Ferrari mechanics remain out in the pit lane.
I'm looking forward to the interviews after the race when Natalie Pinkham asked the Ferrari team about this.
Okay, Lewis, it won't be long now. So you start push.
But Alonso's had a lot of traffic, so let's see if it actually works. Raikkonen coming into the pit lane now, stopping. He's gone quite deep. He's gone a little bit, in fact, he's gone a long way too far. That'll have cost him half a second. Comes out in front of the Force India.
And this is Alonso we were just riding on board with, Martin. He's now around the final turn as we cut to Daniel Ricciardo behind Sergio Perez in the Force India. Alonso down the straight now. And sadly, I can't quite see about our commentary box window if Raikkonen's ahead or not.
Raikkonen's still in front.
Raikkonen's still in front of Alonso as now we look at the overtake move in front of us. That's Daniel Ricciardo on Sergio Perez.
Yeah, now the computer's still showing Raikkonen just ahead of Alonso, who's just ahead of Massa. We'll catch it in a minute in vision, hopefully.
So I wonder if Alonso's taken a gamble there, and his side of the garage have taken a gamble, thinking we can fight our way through the traffic, and it's not quite paid off for them, because as you mentioned, there was a lot of cars. He had to try and fight his way through.
He had a lot of traffic on that lap, Alonso, so it didn't quite pay off.
So race leader pits as well. Lewis Hamilton was told, not long now, Lewis. And out he goes. And down to the pit lane exit, where he can start to put his foot down a little bit more. Nico Rosberg takes over the lead of this race, and by the time Hamilton had got to his first pit stop, Rosberg had actually closed that gap quite a bit, and that pit stop at 3.8 seconds is not the fastest Mercedes have done so far this year.
It was a tenth or two getting away, wasn't it? It was a little bit slow away, but he'd got a 2.3 margin, so he should be okay. And again, it's amazing how it all works out, doesn't it? When you're in the lead like that, you end up going back onto the clear track. It just keeps snowballing in your favour.
So Raikkonen coming out of the pits. There he is. This is how close it was for Fernando Alonso, and he locks up, trying to just outbrake himself a little bit, going into that first turn just to try and get ahead of Raikkonen, who kept it cool on the inside, ice cool on the inside, and stays ahead of his teammate.
Yeah. I'm even getting used to the ugly noses. But you know, we haven't mentioned yet, because it's not been anything like the factor that we thought it would be this season: fuel consumption. It was supposed to be, you know, all driven by that, and it barely gets a mention, doesn't it? Because they're trying to use as little fuel as they can at all times, as they always have done, because they don't want to carry the weight.
What we're talking about now actually is different versions of fuel. Total bringing new fuel to the track, and then Shell have done the same with Ferrari this weekend as well. This was the pit stop for Lewis Hamilton. It's not quite working in sequence for him there. And the new fuel that the companies are bringing to the cars, aiding the performance and the horsepower that the drivers have by as much as 10 horsepower plus.
So Rosberg stayed out and done the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, because he was so happy with those tyres at 1.667. He's now 20.7 ahead of Lewis, which is sort of a pit stop, isn't it?
Well, it's about 24 seconds was the estimates to be on the safe side for the pit stops here. And Lewis Hamilton is not going quicker through the first sector on this particular lap. Rosberg's played a canny, patient, waiting game.
But what Lewis mustn't do is be tempted to go and take all the grip out of those tyres and overheat them straight away. He's got to play the patient game, but it'll be frustrating. But as you point out, Rosberg's quicker on the old tyres in Sector 1 than Hamilton is on the new tyres.
See, he never once tried to follow Lewis too closely in those opening stages, which is either because Lewis was going too fast and Rosberg couldn't match it at all, or he was expecting this sort of scenario and he was looking for this sort of scenario and thinking, oh, just wait around a little bit and then we'll be okay.
But it's like I felt yesterday in quali, like I felt when we were talking about rear tyres earlier on. You just sense that Nico's got the slightly better package for the longer runs. And he's, you know, when you got a driver radioing and say, these tyres are really good, it's quite a rare occurrence these days, isn't it?
What a massive difference it is to this time last year, though, for both Mercedes drivers who were on the front row with Rosberg on pole and Hamilton second, but went backwards during the race. They're very much accelerating forwards this afternoon, and Hamilton has now just set a fastest lap of the race. So with the heat coming into his tyres, he's found a little bit more grip, and the gap is 20.1 seconds between Hamilton and Rosberg, which is not going to be enough for Rosberg to get in, make his pit stop, and come out ahead.
Tough call now. Tough call for Rosberg's side of the garage. Do they react to that, or do they try and stretch it to a two-stopper?
Valtteri Bottas there with a 3-second pit stop, 22.8 seconds. So anywhere between sort of 22.6 and 23 would be about the pit stop loss. But that's not going to help Nico Rosberg in his battle with Lewis Hamilton. Thing about Mercedes, they're so far clear of everyone else. They just have to concentrate on themselves, and Rosberg's going to come in at the end of this lap, because right in front of our commentary box we can see now the mechanics with their crash helmets on, their overalls on, waiting for Nico Rosberg to come in. As we ride on board with Lewis Hamilton making his way around the final few corners. And it's what tyres are going on, Martin?
Hard compound tyres, so they're going counter to what Lewis Hamilton did, and just as they did in Bahrain. So it's interesting. His tyres will be a couple of laps fresher, but his lead will, or his deficit to the leader will be greater.
And look, there is Lewis Hamilton lapping Marcus Ericsson into turn 1 as now Nico Rosberg comes out. The pit stop was a second faster for Rosberg than it was for Hamilton, which is going to help quite mightily. And you're right, it's exactly what they did in Bahrain. We had the safety car in the latter stages in Bahrain, but the prediction from Mercedes was that by the time they had the final round of pit stops, with about 4 laps to go, Rosberg would have caught up with Hamilton, and then they'd have had a 4-lap duel. As it was, we got about 12 laps and got greedy because we loved it.
Yeah. Okay, so race on then at the front. What's going on? Ricciardo, of course, gained some track space then by pitting earlier and stealing that 3rd place off Bottas. Grosjean hanging on very well to his 5th place, albeit 50 seconds behind the leaders. That'll shake out a bit, actually. That'll be less than that once they factor in Rosberg's pit stop. It's about a half a minute.
Barely mentioned Grosjean at all, but it has to be said he's doing the most solid of jobs for Lotus at the moment.
And he's keeping the Ferrari completely at bay. He hasn't forgotten how to be a fast racing driver. Just the car looked like it's virtually undrivable in the early phases of the season, frankly. And occasionally now.
Highest driver in the championship without a point going into this race. We'll keep our fingers crossed for Romain Grosjean that he gets his first points of the season, because he's driving well enough to deserve them at the moment. Another fastest lap of the race for Lewis Hamilton, who's used slightly less fuel than Nico Rosberg so far, although, as you say, Martin, fuel saving not exactly featuring high on the outcome of races.
For 12th place in the pit stop sequences. So well done McLaren, well done Jensen. Still not in the points, but you never know, still some laps to go. And just the interesting thing for me now as to whether the Red Bulls and Daniel Ricciardo particularly can turn this into a 2-stop. You would have thought when he stopped it was bang on 3-stop strategy. We'll know by lap 36, which is when the second stop of the 3s should start coming in, but you never know. Can Ricciardo just look after his tyres and stay ahead of the potentially 2-stopping Bottas? Keep on top of that one.
Well, looking after his tyres has been very much a part of Daniel Ricciardo's game this season, and he was rather hinting, I think, earlier on before the race.
Okay, what gap do I need now? How many laps?
Okay, Lewis, so we need to increase the gap by about 4 seconds over the next 20 laps. So we need to look after these tyres, but just build that gap.
And that's to...
So no need to push hard, Nico. Your position is safe. You're just looking to close the gap to Lewis to 2 seconds at the end of this stint.
It's currently 3.7, so... Well, once again, and all credit to them, Mercedes are very much letting these two race. And we should always applaud them for that and boo when they don't.
Blimey, yes, the Ferrari comes up behind the Lotus. Kimi Raikkonen and Romain Grosjean. Raikkonen had managed to get ahead of Grosjean, who then fights him back once again.
Those two, of course, teammates at Lotus last year.
Yeah.
And still,
moment there where the Ferrari had gained on Grosjean by quite a lot during the course of the lap, by 0.7 of a second. Then Grosjean moves over to cover the inside, and Raikkonen just overcooks it, and Grosjean says, "Thank you, cheers, I'll have that back again, mate."
Grosjean must have been thinking, where did he come from? He arrived like a typhoon.
Cold wind coming his way, but on this lap now, look how much closer Raikkonen is.
Okay, Jeff, we've got an exhaust problem, so we box garage now.
Oh, poor old Jean-Eric Verne, his 3rd DNF of the season is coming his way, sadly, in the Toro Rosso. It's been a weekend to forget in Spain for him. But here comes Kimi Raikkonen once again. Not the greatest of exits out of the final turn for Romain Grosjean. Let's have a look at the horsepower of that Ferrari, the prancing horsepower of that Ferrari as it gains on Grosjean, and once again goes to the inside, and this time Kimi Raikkonen gets the move done long before turn 1 arrives, and Raikkonen has put himself up into 5th place, and now there's a Lotus in between the two Ferraris. Raikkonen, at the second time of asking, gets the job done.
And a Lotus that looks overly slow down the straights, as if he's got a bit of an issue going on, like he's lost some of his KERS power or something, because that was just a touch too easy.
Yeah, see, look how Alonso's now gaining on Grosjean as well. I wondered if it was a bit of tyre wear as well, but he's only had those tyres on for 10 laps.
Yeah, it just looks bog slow in a straight line, doesn't it? Jeb's very unlucky with mechanical issues, isn't he? Has been all through last year too.
Third retirement of the season, as I mentioned there, so he's tied with Adrian Sutil now for the most retirements of the year. Not a record he particularly wants to remember or have attached to him, as here goes Fernando Alonso. Has a look at Grosjean, who locks up and leaves the gap open for Alonso. The door is quickly slammed. The Lotus moves over for turn 11.
Slow.
Yeah, halfway, well, 3/4 of the way down the straight, and Alonso's got the job done. They don't mind, however easy it might have looked from the outside. They'll still stand up and applaud, and Alonso can get back on with task number 1 today, and that's to catch his teammate, who's built up a little bit of an advantage by getting past Grosjean a little earlier.
Yes, he was very tongue-in-cheek, but he can be a divisive character, Fernando Alonso, saying, well, I usually beat my teammates. And it was tongue-in-cheek, but you'll not be happy being behind him, that's for sure.
The man, of course, Alonso, who won this race last year. Ferrari and Fernando Alonso's last race victory in Formula 1. And it's the longest 12 months without a win, the longest they've gone without a win since, 1990 to 1994. Barren run there where they were winless.
I'll tell you what this belies, and I have to say it's very consistent with what I see out on track on a Friday. As a lot of people have been saying, yeah, the Ferrari chassis is brilliant for a change, it's the engine they're struggling with. Well, this is the chassis circuit.
Gap is looking good. We don't want it to increase, and then we'll reduce it in about 10 laps time. So just looking after the tyres.
And the gap is 2.9 seconds at the end of lap 26. And on that lap, Rosberg was about 4/10 faster.
So this is for track position is what they're talking about, isn't it? The next stop. So Nico was told to get it down to around 2. It's 2.9. Lewis was told to get the gap up to greater than 6 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's not working. So advantage Rosberg right now.
Working slightly better in his favour. You're spot on there. The gap was 4 seconds at one stage. So very much looking good for Rosberg, but not even at half race distance yet. There's still a long way to go here, and Hamilton still leads the Grand Prix from Rosberg, from Ricciardo in the Red Bull, from Bottas, and then Raikkonen, Alonso, Grosjean, Massa, Sebastian Vettel, who we're watching, and Nico Hülkenberg. That's the top 10 at the moment. Just outside the top 10, Sergio Perez, about 8/10 behind his teammate Hülkenberg, and then comes Jenson Button. There's about a 3-second gap back to Jenson Button, but he is now ahead of Danny Kvyat and Kevin Magnussen in 14th. Then Gutierrez, Maldonado and Sutil and Chilton, who's got back ahead of his teammate Bianchi. Bianchi, who's been lapped, as has Kobayashi, as has Ericsson and John-Eric Vergne, as we just saw, the only driver out of this race so far.
Vettel's got himself, Vettel's got himself into the points at the moment, just in 9th. 2 points for that one if he turn in mid-corner exit. I'd imagine it's exit, but I don't know. Closing the diff is all I would imagine he can do inside there. Tightening the diff.
Yeah, but it's almost being a computer programmer, isn't it, for the driver, whilst they're trying to open a gap, race against others, keep the car on the track. It's working well for Lewis Hamilton this lap, though, because he's already 7/10 of a second faster than Nico Rosberg. Just looking here, Rosberg had a bit of traffic. He might have had a bit of traffic. He's just ahead of Jules Bianchi at the moment, so it's possible that Bianchi was slowing him down just a touch whilst Rosberg tried to get past. But it's been a much better lap for the British driver, for Lewis Hamilton. The gap that was 2.8 seconds.
My rear end's everywhere.
I hope that's the car.
Imodium's good for that.
Now 3.7 seconds the gap, even with a rear end that he feels is a touch on the loose side.
Yeah. So Lewis not happy at this face. He's so unhappy. He's just gone 9/10 quicker than his teammate. But of course he's on the different tyres. But he's it might be sliding around a bit, but it's moving forwards at a rapid rate of knots as well.
Daniel Ricciardo just set his best lap of the race so far, but remains that 20 seconds back from the two Mercedes. What he's doing, Ricciardo, there, is now building a sizable advantage over Valtteri Bottas. As I can see in the pit lane, crews coming out at Williams.
That's only a game they can play so many times, because they're not allowed out into the pit lane unless they're about to service their car. But they're quite entitled to change their minds as well.
That's exactly what has
stopped. I've just been looking at the top speeds of the Grosjean, of the Lotus of Grosjean, and it is down to 3:02 across the start-finish line compared to 3:12 for the Ferraris and 3:31 I thought I saw a Williams at. So he is very much slow in a straight line. And just a thought on the lap times compared Lewis Hamilton compared to Nico Rosberg. There's not much in it between the tyres, is there?
No.
Tenth or two when everything's equal, even though at the last lap it was half a second, wasn't it?
Yeah, because what Nico Rosberg has lost, I think, in the last couple of laps is purely down to lapping back markers. That he's lost what Lewis Hamilton would have lost about 2 or 3 laps previous on that one. It's Bianchi and Chilton that were the ones being lapped by the 2 Mercedes. Cheers for spotting Massa, Ted. He's on my timing screen. I just couldn't quite see that he's stopped for a second time. He's down in 14th place at the moment as Felipe Massa.
So Lewis then still edging away. Got that gap up to 4.3 seconds. 4.5 so far on this lap, you can see there. 4.584. That's a real time thing. So he's beginning to build that gap.
He's doing what that side of the garage needed him to do. Pastor Maldonado, who's had a 5-second stop-go penalty, is now having to repass Sauber again. Esteban Gutierrez is the one that he's got past.
Any marbles out there on the pit straight again. It was looking a bit like a goat track, and we're not even half distance.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw that in the GP2 races as well. There was an awful lot of marbles on the track.
So Massa's gone out on a set of hard compound tyres and been fastest man of the entire Grand Prix so far through the first sector. So the hard tyres that Nico Rosberg is on look like they're working a lot better now. The track is rubbered in, cleaned up. You know, for the first time, we've had rain, we've had all sorts of support races. For the first time, you've got still 21 cars circulating and cleaning up the track, laying down the rubber, especially in the traction zones. And it's not too hot, and it's sort of a sweet spot, actually, isn't it, from compared to anything else we've seen for these tyres.
Sergio Perez has just been asked, are you more comfortable on the medium or the hards? To which he's replied, I don't know. They're both okay. Which is better for long runs. Okay, but we'll work that out then, say the team.
Unfortunately, you can't try half and half. They must all be of one homogeneous compound. So they've either got to be one or the other.
As far as Sergio Perez is concerned, he's not really sure.
Because if you could, you would definitely, like we used to actually, you'd sort of put a harder left front on at some circuits, or harder rears and softer fronts. You start mixing and matching them. It gets massively complicated. But when we didn't have electronic diffs and other beautiful devices like that, tricks like mixing and matching the tyres were quite helpful.
And Lewis Hamilton's got an issue with the diff at the moment as well. The lap time between Hamilton and Rosberg, on lap 31, there was only 0.06 of a second. It was in Rosberg's favour. But Hamilton, saying the rear tyres are cool. We're not sure if we're overprotecting them. And then he's saying to his race engineer, Bono, I've got oversteer. I'm not going to open the diff and give myself more. Hamilton's... It doesn't look it, Martin, from the outside, but I think there's just a little bit of tension building up in Lewis Hamilton in that cockpit, and he looks fairly calm, but underneath the crash helmet, I'm not sure he is totally.
So yeah, the rear tyres are cool. We're not sure if we're overprotecting them, and so by tightening the diff up and not sliding around so much, he's actually giving him cool rear tyres, and Lewis just doesn't want to go back to where he was before. You can step on the loud pedal to warm the rear tyres up when you want to, as long as you don't do it too much. I talked about this in quali, I saw lots of Twitter feedback on it actually, but there is no rubber in the tyres. It's made up of all sorts of chemicals, and it acts like a plastic, and if you spin them up for too long, you overheat them, and the tyres change properties, and they will not come back to you. Yeah. That's why the drivers have to tread lightly with them.
And Rosberg's just put in a new fastest lap of the race, and he's gone 0.3 of a second faster than Hamilton. Ted, to you.
And that has prompted a very interesting radio message from Rosberg's engineer to Nico Rosberg saying, well done, Nico. So with your tyres, you are 0.3 of a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton. So taking into account the tyre differential that we think there is between the hard tyre that you are on, of course, and the medium tyre that Lewis is on, you are a net, Nico Rosberg, you are a net 0.3 of a second per lap quicker than Hamilton. So the engineers think he's doing the job.
Now, Lewis has got the same tyres to come, yeah, but it's finely balanced, isn't it? Which way will this go? I have no idea. I just sense that Rosberg's got the slight upper hand, but it's a tiny amount if he has.
Yeah, it's kind of trading jabs and jab after jab after jab. If you're two boxes in the ring, no one's gone for the big. They're going to have to switch their tyres once more. Lewis Hamilton hasn't run the hard compound tyre just yet. Nico Rosberg is on them at the moment. The track temperature's fallen by a degree, and that might just swing it either way in the tyres' favour as well. And we've got at least one, if not two, pit stops to come from these two. The gap now 4.4 seconds out in front. So Hamilton has just got back the advantage he lost in the previous lap on lap 33. Another little jab landed by the British driver. Now what can the German driver come back with on this lap?
Ricciardo's still only 11 seconds ahead of the two-stopping Bottas. Bottas has got a foot on the final step of the podium at the moment. He's 6 seconds clear of Raikkonen, who's 1.2 clear of Alonso. Grosjean's still in there.
That's still pretty good. Just left rear is the one I got to watch out for.
He stopped Daniel Ricciardo on lap 14 to change onto those medium compound tyres, replicating what he did in Friday practice and put together, I think, a 21 lap run on the medium tyres with little excessive degradation. As actually into the pits comes Sebastian Vettel, his teammate, and Vettel, who's already run the hard tyres, of course, in this race, can get back out on what should be the faster tyre. A 2.3 second pit stop. Wow, that is fast for a team, the Lotus. So 14th place, and he hasn't got to try and get past Maldonado. So that's the difference the team have just made for Sebastian Vettel there.
Yeah, and he's got a good bit of space in front of him as well, Vettel. He can hold that thing into the points. It'll only be a handful of points, but it was 15th on the grid, and this is 2014 and not 2013.
And it is Barcelona, which is not an easy track to overtake on at all. But only 3 men in the history of the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona have ever finished on the podium, starting outside the top 10 as well. Juan Pablo Montoya did it, and Olivier Panis did it, and Mark Blundell did it as well in 1994.
Well done, Billy Boy.
And out in front, 4.3 seconds the advantage. Then there's a long way back to Daniel Ricciardo, and a decent gap he's got over Valtteri Bottas. Kimi Raikkonen still ahead of Fernando Alonso. The gap between the two Ferraris, we haven't mentioned them for a while, 1.5 seconds. So Alonso is there, keeping Raikkonen company, but not able to get past the Finnish driver as yet. Hülkenberg in 7th, and Romain Grosjean has just pitted from 8th for his second stop of the race. Now that's all happening in the points. Further down, how is this race panning out for you at the moment?
Well, it's proven to be an interesting race, Crofty. There's, both cars got off the line really well. Both Max and Jules were really happy with the starts. Unfortunately, Max got tied up a little bit in the first half of the lap and dropped back. And so we had to have a bit of a rethink on where he was going. It looks to me as if Kobayashi's just come off the track, so that's always helpful for us.
Says he's lost his brakes, apparently, Graham.
Oh no, well that's not good. So the strategy's working well on both cars at the moment, and we'll just see how the race pans out. But it's nice to be racing them.
How close do you think you are to really having a go at beating Sauber?
I think we know how to do it, Martin. We've put some upgrades on the car here. We've seen a real tangible positive improvement to the whole pack, and we pretty much know how to do a bit more of that again. It's just frankly having the resource to do it.
And then in terms of tyre usage and tyre wear at the moment, Graham, for you guys, what's best, hard or mediums?
Well, we've had very little running on the mediums actually. But I think one thing's for clear, it's all down to pace. The wear life on these tyres is really extremely good. There's a lot left on them when they're done. So it's a battle of lap times, and that then comes down to traffic as well. So this is a strategist race, this one, that's for sure.
Certainly is. Thanks ever so much, Graham. And that's why Fernando Alonso will be mightily happy to see his former teammate Felipe Massa behind him in his wing mirrors as he came out of the pits there. 2/10 of a second more in that pit stop, and Massa would have been ahead of him. So Alonso's back out on 11th and Massa's 12th, having stopped a little bit earlier. And there's Nico Rosberg locking up into turn 5 and putting a huge amount of heat into that front left.
Vettel's done the fastest lap of the race by some margin, actually, so fresh tyres, clear air for the first time in the Grand Prix, and he's now only 3.4 seconds behind Felipe Massa.
Setting fastest laps of the race then. So we saw that lock-up from Nico Rosberg, which might have cost him a little bit of time, and once again he got the gap between himself and Hamilton down to below 4 seconds. So remind you, if you're just joining us on this Sunday afternoon here in Spain, what they want from Rosberg's side of the garage at the end of this stint is around 2 seconds for a gap. So advantage Hamilton at the moment, but can Rosberg now start to close in a bit? And you'd imagine the harder compound tyre that he's on will allow him to run for that little bit longer, and the fact that he stopped 3 laps later as well, as we watch Fernando Alonso now down the main straight behind Kevin Magnussen at the moment for McLaren. Pulls out, doesn't leave much room, does he, between the rear of that McLaren and the front of the Ferrari, and he gets past Magnussen going into turn 1. Can he keep it? Absolutely, Martin, he can, and holds that position very nicely.
If you're wondering why Magnussen had DRS when there was nobody in front of him, at the detection point there was a car that went in the pits, so Magnussen was entitled to and given access to the DRS, but still wasn't enough.
And Alonso then up into 7th. And he is now going to try and put his foot down once again and try and close that gap between him and Raikkonen as Vettel squeezes past Felipe Massa. You mentioned just a lap ago that Sebastian Vettel was starting to pick up the pace, and here he is now after 2 pit stops up into 9th.
No, just taking 2.5 seconds out of Massa and rocked up and passed him. Wow.
We saw Kamui Kobayashi as well say that he was losing his brakes, and we mentioned that a few moments ago, and I think he's just retired.
Overtook him really, he didn't need to, he got the pass done and then went super late on the brakes.
So Alonso got that move done. We watch Sebastian Vettel now on Felipe Massa, putting it down on the inside.
And you're only going to do that on an experienced driver, let me tell you, down into turn 5.
And that's why Magnussen and so once again Magnussen and Vettel so close. He just outbraked himself a little bit there, just Sebastian Vettel. I'm just looking here, the stewards are looking at Marcus Ericsson for ignoring blue flags and ignoring them with Kimi Raikkonen actually behind him. Raikkonen's now got ahead of Ericsson, but you wonder if he ignored a few blue flags, did that hold Raikkonen up? And has that held him up enough to give Alonso a bit more of a fighting chance to jump him in the pit stops?
But the way that reads, Raikkonen is also under investigation. Oh no, car incident involving. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So Raikkonen can't be getting blue flags because he's not about to be lapped. He's 52 seconds behind, and quite clearly not 93, which is a lap time.
And we're also not in China this week, where they seem to be showing blue flags to just about everybody.
They did.
Checkered flags at whatever stage of the race they felt it was appropriate.
Look at this then. So next up for Sebastian Vettel is the Ferrari of Fernando Alonso. Once again, the Red Bulls come alive through a Grand Prix. This is bold.
Yeah, he almost got punished. Look at that wheel-to-wheel stuff, but is he taking a lot out of that front left?
This is Sebastian Vettel. I have nothing to lose. I know exactly what the feeling. I have nothing to lose, so I'm just going for it. You decide if you're going to turn in.
So it's Hamilton. There he is, the race leader by 3.8 seconds from Rosberg, Ricciardo, Bottas, Raikkonen, Alonso, Vettel, Magnussen, Massa.
0 to Nico last lap. Gap at 3.8.
Where have you been for the last couple of laps, man?
Well, he's been there, but obviously...
Last stint, I hope it will. It looks like Ricciardo has indeed, as we said, managed to switch from a 3 to a 2-stop strategy by not coming in as yet. Let's see if that works out well for him. Could yet nick a podium off Valtteri Bottas. Just a quick one on Jenson Button. The mechanics at McLaren had to hold him in the pit box because somebody else was coming down the pit lane and he missed an opportunity of passing Hulkenberg, one of Force India's, who's now well clear of him.
Yeah, he's now in 13th place, Jenson Button. And, if he has managed to convert the strategy, Ricciardo, he's obviously saved himself then, around about 23 seconds that he would have lost by making another stop, and he's been out there since lap 14. Martin, on these. Nico Rosberg isn't quite reducing the gap in the way they want it, but Lewis Hamilton is not extending the gap in the way his side of the garage wants it either, as we watch the Williams of Felipe Massa and the McLaren of Kevin Magnussen swapping places. At the end of the straight, Massa up into 8th place now. He has stopped twice. Kevin Magnussen has only stopped the once in this race so far. And the Williams into 8th, Magnussen down in 9th. McLaren running in the points with Magnussen at the moment in this race. 25 laps to go. That was easily done there for Felipe Massa.
DRS assisted, but they've got the same motors. Williams must be making more. I know he's on much better tyres, so he got better exit out of T15 and T16, but that was the drag takes over it, in the second half of the straight to an extent, and so somehow the Williams is getting more out of that Mercedes power pack, and obviously carrying less drag.
Yeah, about 7 kilometres an hour the difference between Massa and Magnussen in terms of pace down that straight. Meanwhile, out in front, guess what? Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, pretty identical times once again on this particular lap. Hamilton might just be about 1/10 of a second ahead, but Hamilton is on the medium compound tyre, Rosberg on the hard compound tyre. There's this battle for first place that is going to go an awful long way into this race. And Ricciardo has managed to get himself a gap of about 13 seconds to Valtteri Bottas at the moment, going long on the set of option tyres he's on, but actually managing to lap round about the same pace as Bottas is. He stopped on lap 14, Ricciardo, and Bottas stopped on lap 20, so 6 laps younger, those tyres for the Williams.
He can two-stop it from now, can't he? So he's just kicked Bottas's foot off that bottom step of the podium.
Frustrating for Valtteri Bottas if that is to be the case, but of course Daniel Ricciardo has tasted a podium before in Formula 1 and wasn't allowed to keep the trophy. Wouldn't mind keeping hold of it this time, and Bottas is yet to stand on the podium in his Formula 1 career. Something's got to give, you'd think, at the end of this race. It's going to be between those two, surely. Just seeing signs of movement at Mercedes, just mechanics checking the wheel guns and checking everything's in position, but while the rest of the crew sit in the garage watching the action.
Raikkonen hanging on to a set of tyres that's making him quite slow at the moment. Alonso's catching him 2 seconds a lap.
Jenson Button, that's got to hurt, hasn't it, how Lewis Hamilton has his former teammate just lapped him in this particular race. Now Mercedes are getting ready. Hamilton just yet.
He went through, didn't he?
Yeah, he went through. They're still out there waiting, and it's not going to be Nico Rosberg either, because there is Rosberg powering his way down the straight. So is Hamilton not heard? No further action on Marcus Ericsson from the stewards.
Yeah, they're just going in again. They've got to put the tyres back in the blankets. Yeah. They don't want to be sitting there another 90 seconds. So either the call was too late for Lewis, or he didn't hear it, or he got radio problems, because he said, "Where have you been the last 2 laps?" On my radio. So that's so the tyres have gone back in the garage, but the mechanics are still waiting out there.
Yeah, they just want to keep them in the blankets for a little bit longer, and Lewis Hamilton is making his way through turn 8 with his teammates. Nico Rosberg, 3.8 seconds was the gap, now 4 seconds the gap on this particular lap, so Hamilton going just a little bit faster on this particular lap despite the pit stop confusion. I just wonder if he's having radio problems out there.
So So they'll call him again. No doubt they have several times already. We don't obviously get anything like all of the radio transmissions. Otherwise, we'd never get a chance to listen to anything else. But
I think he stopped twice, and Hamilton had only stopped once before, but now he comes in for his pit stop. Nico Rosberg takes over the lead of this Spanish Grand Prix. Hamilton switches to the hard compound tyre, and once again, I could be wrong here, but that didn't look to be the fastest pit stop I've ever seen Mercedes do.
It wasn't the blur you normally expect to see, and it was a steady getaway. That could be the difference. That could be the difference between winning and losing this race.
Hamilton's stops have been 3.8 and 4.3. Rosberg's one stop was 2.8 while they were stationary.
Yeah. There just didn't seem to be any urgency, did there, to sort of get away for some reason. They were talking.
Time for the graining.
Now Rosberg's getting graining problems there, but that had an air, that pit stop, of a Sunday Spanish siesta stroll.
So did the first one, Crofty, didn't it? The first one, do you remember, was 3.8 seconds. So I don't know whether there's a problem with the wheel nut. They have to take their time. We'll investigate that after the race. It did look very tardy, didn't it? But they were having a sort of discussion. I think the reason why Lewis did an extra lap, they were discussion about how much wing flap to adjust. They settled on 2 holes down, two turns down. So I do believe that they did make that adjustment in the stop.
Hamilton on the radio, 3 turns down on the front wing for the prime tyre, responding saying, I said not 3 turns, don't understand why you're doing 3, just do the normal 2. There's miscommunication going on out there.
A bit of frustration at the moment. They can see the load data on the push rods, they can see the downforce, they can see the amount of steering angle he's got on through the corners as to what the balance of the car is, so they know what's going on out there. Believe it or not, exactly, sometimes more than the driver. The driver's feeling it through the seat of his pants, but they're seeing it in digital form.
So then, here we are, Nico Rosberg leading this race, Lewis Hamilton in second. So the leaders swapped hands, obviously, because Hamilton came in for a pit stop, and the gap was about 18.6 seconds then at the end of the last lap, once Hamilton had finished his pit stop. Now Rosberg has got to increase that advantage to jump Hamilton in the pits, or Martin, he's got to keep it to a level that he thinks, well, I'm going to be on the faster tyre in this last stint, and I'm going to be able to overtake.
But it didn't turn out to be faster, did they, in the last stint for Lewis? Yeah. There was not a lot in it. So what he's got to do then, Rosberg needs to build the lead to well over 20 seconds, doesn't he?
I don't think he can afford to stay out there any longer, and I'm looking out of our commentary box window, and he's not going to stay out there much longer, because he's losing time on this lap to Lewis Hamilton, quite substantial time as well. Rosberg's coming into the pits.
So just like Bahrain then.
My last lap, so they too slow.
No, pace was good at the end of that stint.
Then why did you bring me in?
We're keeping you on the optimum strategy, Lewis. Optimum strategy.
He's trying to win a race and predict the strategy as well. And look, 3 seconds, the pit stop for Nico Rosberg. So comfortably, time in Rosberg's favour, but there's Hamilton going through. He's managed to get past Pastor Maldonado, who's holding him up a little bit, and now Rosberg comes out behind Sutil, who he can lap ahead of Gutierrez. So that's the gap, that's the margin now.
Bahrain revisited, isn't it, in that Hamilton has track position, Rosberg has the theoretically faster tyres, but he's also got a bit of traffic to get through first. But it does seem as if Lewis got out of bed the wrong side this morning.
Well, if he stood on the top step of the podium, he'll be smiling at the end of this one, and then he might just be a little bit unhappy in the debriefs. There's nothing like 25 points in a championship lead to help the mood on a Sunday night in Barcelona, as Ricciardo and Red Bull once again show you how a pit stop should be done. 2.3 seconds earlier for Sebastian Vettel, and 2.4 seconds there for Daniel Ricciardo. And I think Valtteri Bottas, yes, coming in as well onto the hard compound tyre for Bottas, the hard compound tyre for Ricciardo as well. So Williams on this occasion covering what Red Bull were doing, and then there's a long gap back there, isn't there, to the Ferrari of Kimi Räikkönen.
I think Williams are now covering the Ferraris, aren't they? I think they've lost the third place fight to Ricciardo at the moment. They're now trying to cover off, finishing fourth.
Should they then have covered Daniel Ricciardo sooner in the first stop?
No, well, they elected not to.
They left Valtteri Bottas out for another 6 laps. It might have been they felt they couldn't have gone that much longer on the middle stint. So Hamilton, Rosberg, Ricciardo, Alonso, Vettel, Bottas, Raikkonen, Massa, Grosjean and Hülkenberg the top 10, and they've all stopped twice, Ted, in the top 10.
Just quickly on Williams, they knew they didn't have the pace to stay ahead of Red Bull.
Nico lost more with traffic, so let's not worry about that now. Let's just knuckle down. You've got 21 laps remaining on the prime tyre. So Nico now on the option.
And if Nico wants to overtake you, he's going to have to come and close that small gap down and overtake you on track. Oh, this is going to be tasty, isn't it? Yeah. Hopefully, to the end. But no, I think Williams knew they just weren't quick enough to make to cover the strategy, the 3-stop, and stay with Red Bull. I think on as far as the computer goes, this was the quickest way for Williams to do this race anyway. Didn't have the pace compared to Red Bull today.
Quite. Felipe Massa has Romain Grosjean right behind him. Grosjean still in the points. He was running in 5th earlier, but was easily overtaken by the 2 Ferraris. He just couldn't defend Grosjean as Massa now pits for a 3rd time in this race, and that frees Grosjean up, and they're chasing him down. The Force Indias behind him, aren't they? Hülkenberg and Perez in very close order. There's 3 cars in a line go down into turn 1, and Grosjean looking in his mirrors to see where Hülkenberg is.
Yeah, we get a good little scrap in the middle there. So Massa's had to 3-stop then. Bottas getting away with 2.
That is how to wish your daughter a happy birthday. Like that. Hamilton was 4.8 seconds out in front. I mentioned that because he's now 4.6 seconds, and Rosberg's just set his fastest lap of the race, so he's starting to close the gap once again, and he's managed with a bit of DRS assistance to get past and lap Maldonado and Ericsson down the straight. They were holding him up just a little bit before. Hamilton being told by his engineer that Nico had traffic, don't worry, you might not like the strategy you're on. And it goes back to what we were saying at the start, Martin, about suspicious minds on drivers here.
There's a bit of paranoia in there with Lewis at the moment, but he knows the pit stop didn't work for him. He knows he's on the slightly slower tyre, but he's still leading the Grand Prix, as he has from the very beginning. He's got a 4.6 second advantage at the moment, lost a couple of tenths on the previous lap, but he's got track position, and that's key.
Well, in Barcelona, yes. Well, so far this season they've been free to race from lights out to the checkered flag. But you know, you've got a 30-second advantage back to Ricciardo. Why would you not? Why would you not let them still race?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, they certainly did in Bahrain. You're absolutely right, and it's quite clear from the radio calls to each car that it's as if they're in different teams, isn't it, on the pit wall.
So you've got Hamilton against Rosberg, 3.6 seconds the gap. You've got Alonso and Raikkonen, with Alonso very much now ahead of Raikkonen and winning that particular teammate battle. You've got Hülkenberg and Perez very close to each other as well. You've got a bit of inter-team rivalry going on here. And there you can see Hamilton with Massa sandwiched in the middle on a 3-stop strategy today, which I don't think has really helped Felipe Massa at all, and he's been lapped by the leader. And then Rosberg gaining by another 10th on this particular lap. And a few marbles as well offline. The tyres that should easily do the distance in this final stint, but you never quite know. One lock-up and then you're just suffering with grip for the rest of the stint, and it's the harder compound tyre on Hamilton's car. It's the softer compound tyre on Rosberg's car. There's a lot that could unfold here in the next few laps.
And the other thing in Lewis's mind is he's got one turn too little front wing on the car as well, for good measure. But his sector times on this lap anyway are pretty solid.
Sets the fastest lap of the race. That's how solid it was for him, and extends his advantage by 1/10 of a second. Now has Rosberg got a little bit of DRS down into the first turn? That will help him, but to me, was that flap open a bit on the Williams as well? Ted, down to you.
Just popped into the Ferrari garage. They're sort of toying with the idea, the perception, maybe the hope that Fernando doesn't have to stop again. I'm not even sure he's used both tyres. Has Fernando used both tyres? Yeah, I think certainly
yes, he has.
He last stopped on lap 34. So if he could make those tyres last to the end, that would be impressive. I think he probably will have to stop again. They're on two different strategies. Fernando potentially on a 3, but they're trying to switch it to a 2, and Kimi on a 2.
Well, at the moment, if he does have to stop again, Kimi wins the Ferrari teammate battle. If he has to stop again. 1:30.8 for Alonso last lap, and for Kimi Raikkonen on the last lap it was a 1:31.0. So Alonso doing all right at the moment.
Vettel still flying around. He's done 17 laps on these tyres, but that quite cautious stance by Williams has put Bottas back in 6th at the moment. And as Ted said, depends on whether Alonso can stretch or not. Vettel, I'd be amazed if he could get to the end now.
Look at this. How far in the green is Lewis Hamilton there? And in terms of his race fuel target, he's been saving fuel and conserving and consuming, I should say, less fuel through the race and on this lap. Rosberg, meanwhile, has just been using it a bit more, but they're both, the Mercedes, so far in the green zone there. As you mentioned, Martin, early on, fuel saving, just not an issue for these two.
They've got on top of it. I mean, at places like Montreal, where it's really tough on fuel, I'm sure we'll hear about it a little bit more. Look at that lap that Rosberg's just done then, a 1:29.2, the gap down to 3.1 seconds. Just to remind us, this is very much race on.
That's a bit more, after all the jabs, that's a bit more of a stinging blow, isn't it? That's the biggest margin, I think, that Rosberg has reduced the advantage Lewis has for quite some time.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nobody between them. There's Max Chilton about to be lapped by Lewis Hamilton again. So there's the blue flags all waving, so he keeps out of the way for Lewis Hamilton. But now is Chilton going to be holding Nico Rosberg up, I wonder, going through this next series of corners as Rosberg closes on him.
Rosberg another 4/10 up on this lap as well.
This is the battle. Danny Kvyat and Kevin Magnussen, as you can see, for 12th place. Magnussen's really closed up on Kvyat in the last few laps. Just looking at the tyres there. Yeah, Kvyat's tyres are about 5 laps older than the McLaren, which could be why there's such a difference. He pulls over onto the marbles to try and defend that place. Does the young Russian Kevin Magnussen. One of the other 3 rookies in Formula 1 just says thank you very much, I'll go around the outside if that's okay, and takes that 12th place off the Toro Rosso. And look at the gap now between the two Mercedes. Another stinging blow by Nico Rosberg. 2.3 seconds the margin. That's about 1.5 seconds that Rosberg's taken out of Hamilton in the last couple of laps.
Kvyat with a 4-wheel drift there, trying to hang on to his place, and the Perez-Hulkenberg fight's been going on since the lights went out.
And look at this, Sergio Perez putting himself into 9th, ahead of Hulkenberg now. So round the outside at turn 1, one teammate passing another teammate, could be done. If you're Nico Rosberg's side of the Mercedes garage, you might fancy that happening again.
Some tense radio calls going on shortly, I'd imagine, between Lewis and his engineer. Under massive pressure now.
Assuming he can hear them.
Yeah.
Because we still don't know the state of the Mercedes radio, and there was a little hint that it's not been working completely well.
When he sees the silver nose in the mirrors,
will have DRS assisting him to make him go a little bit faster. The gap down to 2 seconds, as you can see now. Pulls out from behind the Toro Rosso of Kvyat, and into turn 1 he goes. Carries on the chase.
These are World Championship defining moments. There's no doubt about it this season between these two.
And in Bahrain, Lewis Hamilton obviously won out with some superb defensive driving. And here's Nico Rosberg, you see, sinking into his seat there under braking in the Mercedes. But here's Rosberg, who needs a morale boosting performance at this stage of the championship. If he can halt the Hamilton momentum, what does that then do for his title credentials?
Absolutely. So, has Lewis got anything left? It's easier to be the hunter than the hunted in these situations. Until you get in the turbulent air, that is. As Hamilton then...
Just make sure you look after the tyres to be able to fight Lewis at the end of the race.
That's not what you want to hear, though, is it? You're gaining, and you're doing a great job gaining, but just leave a little bit of rubber, please, for the end of it. Sebastian Vettel did have to stop for a third time. Comes out behind Kimi Räikkönen, ahead of Romain Grosjean. There's the two Force Indias that we can see, and the McLaren of Jenson Button, and there the two Mercedes down the straight with Kevin Magnussen sandwiched in between them.
Hamilton faster on that lap, his personal best of the race too, but it's reassuring to hear the engineers on the pit wall talking about a fight at the end of the race. So hasn't been called off up there yet.
Look, this is how the gap has reduced from lap 47, where it was 4.6 seconds, to lap 52, where it was 2 seconds. But on the end of lap 52, Lewis Hamilton was 2.7 seconds clear, and that's the time we also heard Rosberg being told just to conserve your tyres a little bit.
He got a bit of traffic, didn't he, on that lap as well, didn't he, Co? So it's not we're not comparing apples with apples there, but nonetheless an important lap in this fight.
Yeah, and this is important as well, Martin, because there's 2 tenths in Hamilton's favour so far. Crucial in the Ferrari teammate battle, and Kimi Räikkönen should emerge out ahead if he can make a 2-stop strategy work ahead of Alonso's 3-stop strategy for this weekend. Alonso comes out into the pit lane, and Räikkönen flashes past our commentary box and down towards turn 1.
He'll be lucky if he's ahead of Vettel. He certainly won't be ahead of Räikkönen.
To 5th place.
I'm happy it's Natalie Pinkham interviewing Fernando Alonso at the end of the race.
Alonso started 7th, Vettel up into 6th place. Alonso started 7th, is 7th. Vettel, who started 15th, is now 6th. That's going to see a stampede towards the exits from the Spanish fans, that one. Vettel just swooping around the outside as Alonso had to stop again and couldn't hold on to his advantage over either his teammate or a man who, well, you never know, might want to be at Ferrari one day himself. As we ride on board, or were, with Sebastian Vettel onto the main straight. He comes now, setting the fastest lap of the race, Sebastian Vettel. And do you know what? He's had one Ferrari here, Martin. He might fancy another one, because he's not that far behind Räikkönen.
And Bottas is only another 7 seconds up the road after that.
I tell you what, it was if he hadn't have got that gearbox penalty for changing the gearbox, Vettel might just have been challenging for a podium, even if he'd have started 10th today. Super pace from him towards the end of this race. Ted, to you.
On the pit lane channel, Lewis Hamilton has been on the radio just exchanging information, what the car's doing and settings, etc. with his team. So the radio is working. He knows the race is on. The engineers know the race is on. But he's at least Hamilton is saying there's no problems or anything at all. He's keeping it all under control at the moment.
Rosberg's coming back, you know.
Rosberg's had a massive first sector, that's why. Wow. Look
4
at that.
tenths quicker than Hamilton through that first sector. We're watching Sebastian Vettel as he's closing down Kimi Räikkönen at the moment, and you know, he's closing it down. You can see with the naked eye just how much speed that Red Bull has over the Ferrari. He might be getting Räikkönen at the end of this lap.
His tyres are 9 laps younger, Sebastian Vettel.
Certainly helping him here. Now, Nico Rosberg's tyres 2 laps younger than Lewis Hamilton's, and Hamilton's on the hard, Rosberg's on the medium, and there's Kevin Magnussen lapped and out of the way now.
JB, that one. Magnussen departed earlier on.
Okay, Lewis, we're looking into it.
Got a touch of left graining for Hamilton, 2.1 seconds the gap. Sebastian Vettel now 7 tenths behind Kimi Räikkönen.
Now Lewis is going to get some traffic, but he's always managed to just keep somebody between him and his pursuer. Oh, it's a long way out there.
Going wide and over the curb there for Sebastian Vettel into turn 5, another run down the hill towards turn 8, which used to be an absolute piece of cake for these Formula 1 drivers, and now you've got to be so careful where you apply the throttle right to the top of the hill, where you get caught a little bit by the breeze.
And Räikkönen got himself a swapper in the middle of T9. Will he take another one of those big
Sebastian
lunges?
Vettel's going to go for it here, has a big lunge down the inside on Kimi Räikkönen. Car nicely stable under braking for him. Super move from Sebastian Vettel there, who has now picked off Kimi Räikkönen to go with a move on Fernando Alonso a few laps ago, and he's up into 5th place.
Räikkönen sleeping a bit.
If you can live with it, you can go B-bell -2, B-bell -2, try and help the front.
Brake balance.
If you can live with it.
Yeah. So presumably that just moves, if you can live with it under braking and under with your downshifting. And look at this. This is a trick that Vettel's played a few times in this race. And I don't think Raikkonen was expecting that one.
He's driver of the day today, the way Sebastian Vettel has performed here, and he's crept up slightly unnoticed, and I'm sure Esteban Gutierrez is noticing that. Who or what has he made contact with there? Or is it always just something just failed there on the car?
That looks like a rear brake duct, doesn't it?
That just absolutely shot off.
Let's have a look at this car, see how it looks. There's plenty of understeer in turn 3, that's for sure. If it turns into 4. Oh, a lot of steering angle.
He was complaining about that yesterday.
You can see the graining on his left front. They might be ruining taking that front wing off.
I tell you what, Martin, Rosberg is continuing to catch here, and on this lap has gained already, and it's getting into that stage now where Rosberg, you know, can almost smell the heat coming off the exhaust of that Mercedes. Yeah, they're fine on fuel. They've got the power usage as well. The two Mercedes drivers, absolutely equal usage on this lap so far. That is not an issue. It is all about what these two do on the track.
Sebastian, close the gap progressively. Close the gap progressively. Need some tyres left by the time you reach Bottas.
And Sebastian can catch Valtteri Bottas.
Easy.
He's 5 seconds behind him at the moment. He's got the laps to do it.
And the reason Rocky's on the phone is he just took 1.6 seconds out of him on the previous lap. So he's saying, you know, don't burn your tyres up too much. But 4th place, so 3rd and 4th is looking on for Red Bull.
And right, here are the two leaders going into turn 1. You've got back markers, Perez, Grosjean just ahead of them. You've got a battle that's under 1.5 seconds now between the leader and his teammate in 2nd place, and you've got plenty of laps to go in this race before the checkered flag comes out.
I don't think Lewis has got the front tyres at the moment to fight him off. If he gets near him, I don't think he's got the front tyres.
So how he threads his way through the back mark is going to be crucial.
8 laps remaining, just thinking about your overtaking strategy.
Plan ahead on that one as Hamilton very neatly clears Sergio Perez and laps the Force India. Perez actually in the points, running 9th.
Confidence for you, isn't it?
Yeah. They've seen this coming, we've seen this coming, and I'm sure you on your sofas back at home or wherever you're watching around the world have seen this coming as well. And if you are sat down, you're going to be sat right on the edge of your seats, I think, at the moment.
So you'd think that with that left front like that, Nico's best chance, I think, is either down the pit straight on the DRS or coming out of turn 3 and up the inside into turn 4.
As they cross the line now to start lap 60, the gap is under a...
It was just over the line, which tells you that Lewis is slow out of the last corner as well. But
and if he's slow out the last corner, how do you defend?
Yeah, he'll not defend well. You defend by having a very wide car down the pit straight. You're going to get very dirty tyres doing that.
You know, they brought the checkered flag out a lap early in China. Lewis Hamilton would like that man to come back again.
Only loss was mid-exit turn 3. Mid-exit turn 3.
That's what we thought, isn't it?
Yep.
Too much understeer in the middle of turn 3, so he's vulnerable into 4.
So here we go, onto the DRS zone. Was Rosberg within a second? I'm not quite sure he was, you know, because he lost a 10th, just closing, and he's just going to run out of straight before he gets into turn 1, but those young tyres might yet win the teammate battle at Ferrari for Fernando Alonso. And while we watch this, on the time you saw on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, 1.3 seconds, the gap between the two Mercedes.
So Lewis pulled out a little bit that time. That's interesting. Not quite sure how traffic played with that one, but now they both had clear laps. So on a blow for blow on that one, Hamilton actually pulled out. So Rosberg's just in that turbulent air zone now as well, isn't he?
And obviously you're going to be affected a lot more at tracks like this than you are in the likes of Bahrain, for instance. The two Ferraris to the top of the hill, and Fernando Alonso definitely has DRS assistance, and this is where Sebastian Vettel has been pulling off some moves, but Alonso not close enough to do it on this lap 61. 1.4 seconds, the gap between Hamilton and Rosberg. So has he survived the potential fight from Rosberg, or is he just holding back the German driver to then have a go with three laps to go?
Another great fight as well going on between Bottas and Vettel, just 1.4 seconds adrift now. That's for 4th and 5th. This is for 6th and 7th.
And everybody, as you can see, standing up as the two Ferraris blast down the straight and accelerate towards 200 miles an hour. And Alonso with DRS gaining on Raikkonen, but just running out of straight once more. 5 laps remaining here. It could be Alonso or it could be Raikkonen that finishes the lead Ferrari. It could be Sebastian Vettel ahead of Valtteri Bottas, despite the fact that he started 15th in the race. And it could yet be Nico Rosberg beating Lewis Hamilton, because the gap at the front down to 1.2 seconds. A better lap that time around from Nico Rosberg.
Perez is on the back of Grosjean as well for good measure for 8th and 9th, so scraps all the way through the top 10. Jenson Button painfully 3 seconds outside of a World Championship point. Yet again, McLaren pointless at the moment.
Yeah, they sadly, to me anyway, looked at a decent bet for a pointless finish here in Barcelona this weekend. That's the way it's sadly looking, as you pointed out. Ferraris both in the points.
It's going to have to be a lunge, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going to be an Alonso lunge if he's going to make it work.
And we really wanted to see this. When this was announced last year, Martin, Raikkonen and Alonso at Ferrari, we wanted to see this sort of battle on the track.
Not for 6th and 7th, really, but we'll take it for now.
I mean, you're right, yeah. 1st and 2nd, it would be lovely for them. But here comes Sebastian Vettel on the Williams of Valtteri Bottas, and he's gained to within a few car lengths.
Oh, he's closer now, isn't he?
Isn't he? Much closer. As they flash over the line once more. The gap in terms of time, irrelevant. It's whether Alonso with DRS can gain up enough. Can he do it once more? No. Kimi Raikkonen stays ahead, and Lewis Hamilton loses 1/10 of a second to Nico Rosberg.
Raikkonen's obviously getting smart with his KERS deployment. He's using the happy button as a defence mode at the moment rather than attack, so it's keeping him in play with the advantage of DRS that his teammates got.
And how does Bottas defend here against Sebastian Vettel? Bottas, who's already lost a chance, possibly, of a podium today to Daniel Ricciardo, who we've barely mentioned, but is on course for his first podium that will stick in Formula One and a trophy that he can keep. Well, Bottas will certainly want to keep 4th place here ahead of Sebastian Vettel, who will try the lunge.
5 laps to go, Sebastian. Use your head.
And use your feet as well. Hard on the braking, Sebastian Vettel, but no chance to get past there. Another 1/10 of a second. Nico Rosberg has been faster than Lewis Hamilton on this lap, and he's now once again back to within a second. So he might be able to use DRS. He's still within a second. It's a long way back in terms of getting a move done at this moment in time, but it's certainly going to help him close that gap even further. And now here goes Sebastian Vettel behind Valtteri Bottas.
Mercedes, they have got DRS. Here we go.
Alonso, Raikkonen, whatever. This time Raikkonen moves over to the inside. Alonso thinks I'll go around the outside. Can't get it done there. Raikkonen on the inside of turn 2. Alonso now. This is the move he pulled off at the start of the race last year, but he didn't have the grip to go round the outside at turn 3. But he might, as Raikkonen goes wide, have the grip under braking to go on the inside at turn 4, and they get perilously close, the two Ferraris. But Alonso does win out on that battle, and he does get 6th place from Raikkonen. And that was superb driving between the two former world champions.
Yeah, he teed him up a treat. Whatever Raikkonen did, Alonso did the opposite, and then with those fresher tyres, better traction off turn 3, he had the high ground into 4 and didn't make any mistakes when he got there. So this gap then definitely under a second now. Wow, great racing all around.
It has been a little bit of a slow burner, and you have to keep your eye on the strategy, but it is all playing out to a quite dramatic last few laps.
Hey, this is exciting as well. Because he's got really deep on the brakes.
It's a lock-up by Hamilton. Rosberg now can close up even more.
But they're coming up to lap the fighting Ferraris for good measure.
So they're going to get shown the blue flags in a minute, the two Ferraris, and this time for the right reasons. Meanwhile, what's happened to Sebastian Vettel? He's gone down the inside on Valtteri Bottas, and Vettel has grabbed that 4th place. So it's Mercedes 1 and 2. It is then Red Bull 3 and 4. It's Williams 5th, and it's Ferrari 6 and 7. But which Mercedes is going to go now into turn 1 in the lead. 2 laps remaining here in Spain. Hamilton's looking in his mirrors, and he's got to, because his teammate Rosberg is closing. He's not closed enough to have a go into the first corner, but he's still got just that little bit of time to get it done once more, and the gap has closed down dramatically here, and Rosberg fighting for the win, Hamilton fighting to protect a race lead that he's held for pretty much the majority here.
Who wants this bad enough? Back in Bahrain, it was Hamilton who showed the greatest hunger. Who's going to show that hunger today?
They might both yet emerge with a smile on their face from this race, but I tell you, if Hamilton wins and survives another onslaught from Nico Rosberg as it happened in Bahrain, well, that smile is going to be broader, and that is going to be a dramatic championship marker from Lewis Hamilton. DRS zone coming up once again then for Nico Rosberg. This is where he gets extra speed down towards turn 10, and there's what, 1, 2 and a bit car lengths in it as he goes just a little bit wider, I think, there. Nico Rosberg, that's where Hamilton locked up before.
If Hamilton's been smart, he'll make sure he's got plenty of Kerr's energy down the pit straight, because I think if Rosberg doesn't do it down into turn 1, it's not going to happen.
No more feedback, please.
Now he just wants to concentrate on the racing, as do we as well. Hamilton never won here in Spain before.
Great slingshot by Hamilton out of turn 15 onto the pit straight through 16 as well. That was critical, and Raikkonen gets completely out of the way, which is very smart and very fair of him. And I think that, personally, was Rosberg's best chance.
It was. Raikkonen was there, kept well out of the way, didn't get involved in the battle. Rosberg closed up, but Hamilton, as you said, Martin, got good toe. It helped him to defend. It's like Bahrain, we keep saying it. It's all coming down to the last few laps. This team, head and shoulders above any other in Formula One at this present moment in time, and little to choose between the two drivers. They split their strategy, and it is just 2/10, 3/10 that's going to decide the race.
The only thing that can blow this for Lewis now is locking his brakes. He just needs to be calm, and I'm sure he will be.
So does Rosberg give it a big lunge down the inside at turn 10? Has he got anything to lose? He's going to get the DRS assistance now at the top of the hill. There it goes, wide open, and they wait with bated breath. There's his fiancée at the garage. This is what we want to see. Rosberg locks up, leaving it late on the brakes. Has he got better traction coming out of the hill? It's good, but it might not be good enough.
No, Hamilton's got it. It was Rosberg who did the lock-up, steaming into turn 10, and it's just given Hamilton a little bit of a breathing space through the last few corners.
He's won the last 3 Grand Prix in a row, has Lewis Hamilton. He's been behind his teammate in the championship up to this moment in time. It's the Spanish Grand Prix and the championship lead for Lewis Hamilton. It's a cracking race once again between the two Mercedes drivers. Hamilton beats Rosberg, goes to the top of the table, and boy, did he have to work for it again.
Brilliant driving once again, hanging on. Just track position was everything. That was the key, wasn't it? That he kept track position, so that it's Rosberg trying to scrabble around in the turbulent air of his teammate that just keeps costing him these victories.
And we can all take a big deep breath, but they're still racing out on the track as well. Everything that happened for those two Mercedes drivers was a long, long way clear of the rest. But let's celebrate once more for Daniel Ricciardo, who had the podium taken away from him in Australia. They won't take this away. It's his first podium that will stick in Formula One. Ricciardo comes home to take 3rd place ahead of his teammate Sebastian Vettel, who's a long, long way back, but to take nothing away from the 4-time world champion. What a drive on a 3-stop strategy from 15th on the grid to come home 4th.
We had a personal piece of track into turn 10. It looks like the new racing line created by Sebastian Vettel. It looked quicker down there. We wonder why they're not braking down there all the time. Great drive by Vettel.
Sebastian Vettel comes home 4th. Valtteri Bottas has to settle for a career best equaling 5th place. And now they can stand and celebrate as Fernando Alonso waves to the crowd and wins his own personal little battle today. It's not the Grand Prix win from last year. It's 6th.
Great stuff there, Lewis. A bit close for comfort at the end, but yeah, you did it, man. You did it.
Now he's going to be happy, isn't he? Surely he's happy now.
I'd like to have heard the response there from Hamilton. We'll see what happens when he gets out of the car. Alonso 6 then, ahead of Kimi Räikkönen. Romain Grosjean gets his first points of the season for him and for Lotus as well, with 8th place. And for Force India, a very good return for them, starting outside on a track where they've been struggling a bit this weekend. They thought they could get a double points finish. They did. Perez 9th, Hulkenberg 10th, McLaren pointless once again with Button and with Magnussen. Felipe Massa, 3-stop strategy didn't quite work for him, comes home 13th ahead of Kvyat, Maldonado, Gutierrez, Soutel, Bianchi, Chilton and Ericsson, and we only lost Kobayashi and Verne with retirements in the race.
Yeah, good finishing record yet again, as it's been all through this season.
Lewis Hamilton parks up. Let's hear from Niki Lauda. He's with Ted.
What a cracking race, Nicky. How much did you enjoy that?
I enjoyed it to the last lap because they were fighting each other, as I've promised before. I was worried, and Nico did everything possible to catch him. Otherwise, we would have never gotten so far away. So all the bullshit people talk sometimes that the Mercedes cars are playing games. We're not, as you can see. Thank you.
Great race, thank you.
Niki Lauda's catchphrase. Apologies for the colourful language there. And let's see Lewis Hamilton then get out of the car. What a super drive it was. Once again, dusts himself down. And getting used to this now.
I didn't see too much bull waste material there. That was a great fight, and quite clearly they were being G'd up to fight each other flat out.
And it confirms once again, doesn't it, that Mercedes are a team allowing their drivers to race against each other, almost encouraging the competition between either side of the garage. Because if it keeps ending up like this, all it does is propel them towards a Constructors' Championship. And it does it quicker.
Nico kept him very, very honest though, didn't he, Nico Rosberg, and handed it to the boy. But he's now lost the World Championship for the first time this year, going into Monaco. Well, he'll want to seize that back. He needs to stop this route now. If he's going to, it's got to be now. Nico Rosberg.
Monaco, a place Hamilton loves, and where Rosberg, of course, won. I wonder what the reception's going to be like, and the reaction's going to be like between the two drivers. As we say, split the tyre strategy, 0.6 of a second the difference between them, and I don't think either can claim that the strategy was unfair or favoured the other. Yeah. Hugs and handshakes. Let's have a listen. Tell you what, the biggest smile is underneath that helmet, because he's got his first podium in Formula One.
He's screening in the end there, no? For the prime? I just had trouble the whole race.
At the end. Almost. Hold on. Hold on.
Happy families?
Don't want to talk much, but would you, as a driver, want to engage your teammate in conversation?
Not right there, not with the whole world watching, no.
Well, they're all waiting for the guys to come out on the podium once more. It's a long way up that hill to run all the way to the podium. That's a fair stretch. And this is the race, of course, where Renault promised more power and where Red Bull hoped to make big gains on Mercedes, and the advantage Mercedes have. And well, it's as it was really in the lead up in the first 4 races of the year. It's Ricciardo ahead of Vettel, and it's Red Bull having to settle for 3rd place on the podium.
You declared that's one he's going to keep, but I hope you're right, Croft. He's got to go through Parc Fermé yet.
I'm not as suspicious as you. Nico Rosberg puts up with the runners-up trophy again for the 4th race running, and it's Lewis Hamilton on the top step. Once, twice, 3, and now 4 times in 2014. Get the feeling from Lewis Hamilton's expression there that he very much feels he belongs on the top step of the podium this year, and he's fully expecting more winners' trophies to come his way. For the first time in his Formula 1 career, he picks up a winners' trophy for the 4th consecutive race. And for Mercedes, 4 consecutive 1-2s for the first time since Ferrari did it in 2002. And we saw Andy Cowell, the engine man at the start of the year, get the Constructors' Trophy. Well, the head of Aero today here in Barcelona, Mike Elliott, picks up the Constructors' Trophy. And quite appropriate, really, for a track like Barcelona.
Lewis's happy juices have just started to flow a little bit, finally.
Yes. Realise what he's done. It's a big moment in the championship. It's another runners-up trophy then for Nico Rosberg. And for Daniel Ricciardo, he's beaten Sebastian Vettel for the 3rd race in a row. Kisses that trophy.
That flip-top smile.
Yeah. Try prizing that out of his hands at the end of tonight.
Good effort from Bottas too, as you already pointed out. Grosjean getting some points for Lotus.
And whilst Nico Rosberg wants to celebrate with his teammate Lewis Hamilton, he's just drinking it all in at the moment. Championship lead, another race win. It's not looking bad for him, is it?
Driver of the day, what do we think? Sebastian Vettel?
Yeah.
Coming through 15th to 4th with some mega overtakes into T10.
But if he wasn't happy with the balance of his car, Lewis Hamilton, he was having to put up with a few things going against him, and he's a contender as well.
Alonso, the last unlapped man on the racetrack, in 6th for Ferrari, 87 seconds adrift. Such is the might of Mercedes, and thank goodness they're being allowed to race each other to the flag, and long may that continue, and why would it not?
As you said, Martin, it's a race between the 2 Mercedes drivers, and then it's the rest of the field in their own little race. The hybrid Mercedes car has all the energy going its way at the moment. I'm talking of bags of energy. Eddie Jordan to speak to the drivers.
Hola. Buenos dias. What a great race, what a great finish. Oh, he's coming down to join me down here. Come on, I'm going to sit there too. Lewis Hamilton, ladies and gentlemen, 4 race wins in a row. Let's hear it from him.
How you doing?
Not bad, thank you.
Well, I'm great. Big thank you to my team. They've just done an incredible job this year. I'm really happy to the support I had here in Spain. It's the best I've ever had. So thank you, everyone in the grandstands. it means the world to me. So my first win here in Spain, it means everything to me.
We heard you grumbling or not quite happy with your team about the graining and also about the time lost in the pits. Tell me, were you upset?
No, not for the pits. I wasn't fast enough really today. Nico was quicker. I struggled a lot with the balance, and really had to rely on my engineers a lot more to give me the gaps and try to find where I could find time. And also with all my settings, I was moving them up and down, really trying to find extra time. But Nico was just generally quicker this weekend, but fortunately I was able to keep him behind.
Well, I needn't tell everybody out there, but you've now taken over the lead in the championship. Ladies and gentlemen, Lewis Hamilton. Nico, what a fantastic fight, just like Bahrain, right up there at the end. How many laps do you think you needed to pass him?
I think one more, to be honest. One more, I could have given it a good go. Like, I wasn't close enough to give it a go there, but next lap I would have. But unfortunately, that was it. So a bit gutted. But still, second place, still close in the championship, and many more races to go anyways.
I needn't remind you or anybody else, but you've been on this podium every race this season so far. Going now to Monaco, your home race where you won last year. Surely you can make a massive effort for that.
Definitely, I'll be going there to do it one better, and try and come first there and repeat the win from last year. That's the aim, and see if it works out. And for those of you who don't know, Eddie is my #1 favorite neighbor in Monaco.
I don't think they needed to know about that. They want to know all about you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave you with my neighbourly friend here. And we're going to have young Australian superstar, the man who has lit up this season so far from the rookie point of view, Daniel Ricciardo.
Hola.
I don't want to be doom and gloom here, but you were 50 seconds behind. What are you going to do to catch these guys up?
Thanks.
I just thought I'd bring you back down to reality a little bit.
No, you're right. They were a long way ahead. So I think coming into the race today, we knew a boring race would have been a pretty good one for us. We knew we didn't really have the pace for Mercedes, and we looked like a third place car. So in the end, that's what it was. We had a pretty comfortable third place, and we just had to focus on getting the tyres to last 2 stops, and that was it. So really nice to be on the podium, and I'm sure I'll get to keep it this time.
I'm very hopeful that you will. We all were disappointed in Australia. But ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please. Daniel Ricciardo, he has enlivened the championship this year by what you've been doing.
Thank you. Cheers.
Come on, I'm back to you. I thought you two were neighbours, no? Yes.
You're neighbours with him, I'm not neighbours with him.
We won't go into where all that carry-on is going. But anyway, look, are you surprised with the dominance? Because a lot of people called to question your idea coming to Mercedes maybe 18 months ago. Had you got this in the back of your mind that this was all the potential that was being told to you?
Yeah, I mean, that's sitting down with Ross in my mum's house on the kitchen table. Yeah, this is what the idea that I was given, and I really truly believed that it was going to happen. But of course, I could never imagine just to have a 50-second gap to Red Bull in a race. So it's just an exceptional job from the team, and I feel truly blessed to firstly be a part of this team, to be contributing, getting the results. I mean, this is now our 4th 1-2 together. It's just unreal.
Well, we were served up with a great day. I can see the pit lane here is absolutely thronged with people. We are so happy for your support. We absolutely need it. And thank you all for coming out. Thank you at home for making sure that you stay in, plug in, because we've got lots of exciting racing for the remainder of this year. Barcelona, thank you!
Nico, please, in your own language.
Ja, also natürlich letztendlich schade. Ja, weil es hat nicht ganz gereicht. Ja. Eine Runde mehr, dann hätte ich vielleicht das erste Mal versuchen können. Aber war halt schon Zielflagge dann und waren nicht genügend Runden, obwohl ich mich am Ende schon sehr wohl gefühlt habe und das Team hat extra versucht für mich die Strategie halt rumzudrehen, weil so habe ich die beste Chance auf der Strecke zu überholen und genau das ist auch aufgegangen. Am Ende hatte ich dann die beste Chance, aber es hat nicht ganz gereicht. Also das ist definitiv schade gewesen, aber es ist halt auch einfach so, dass die Strecke hier, das ist die schwierigste Strecke von allen, um dem vorausfolgenden Auto sehr nah zu kommen, ja, weil es sind so langgezogene Ecken und da hat man einfach wenn man dahinter ist, verliert man so viel Anpressdruck, dass man nicht nah ranfahren kann und trotzdem ist es mir gelungen, recht nah zu kommen, aber ja, schade. So ist halt jetzt. Wir haben Führung leider verloren, aber trotzdem, es ist so nah, ja, von den Punkten her und ich bin definitiv extrem nah dran. Ja, also ich muss jetzt nur das kleine Quäntchen noch finden und dann drehe ich das rum und dann übernehme ich wieder. Ja, also das ist, da kann ich auch viel Positives rausnehmen vom heutigen Tag und ja, es ist jetzt abgehakt und natürlich ganz, ganz toll, wie die Silberpfeile abgehen momentan. Also das ist eine Riesenfreude, das Auto zu fahren und das ist echt beeindruckend, was unser Team jetzt dahingestellt hat. Ganz toll und freue mich jetzt auf Monaco.